Hello. Today is Wednesday, February 15th, 2023. This is episode 4, and we're getting better every time. As you can see behind me, hey, we went upstairs into my office, and I'm talking with a semi-normal voice now. So welcome. Here's 2 things that I want to get to the bottom of right away. First, I know that I tend to jump around on topics and then I circle back, but sometimes it takes me a real long time to circle back. Help keep me accountable with that. All right, that's number 1. And number 2, make sure that I'm using good volume and staying away from those pauses. All right, I'm gonna do the best that I can. I need some good criticism. I need comments. I need anything that you can give me in order to help me create better content and improve this platform. Okay, so first, police, help, police, help, police, help, help, help. That's one of my favorite GIFs or memes or videos or what. It's hilarious. But please like, rate, review, follow, subscribe, and recommend. It's free to you and it helps me. It's free to you and it helps me. Dang, I got a lot of wrinkles on my forehead. Don't talk about the glare. Don't leave me alone on that. We'll get better. Leave me alone. All right. So any comments or questions or anything, we do have an email account, and I know you're gonna make fun of me for it. Okay, it's a long one. Don't. We're too early in the episode for all that nonsense. Don't. Children. Okay. All right, here we go. Ma'am, sir, thank you. All right, so the email is footballandotherthings1@gmail.com. footballandotherthings1@gmail.com. I'll put it at the bottom of the episode. I'll post it on social media. I've said it before, but I'm going to reiterate it. Okay, so last episode, I talked about how delicious bagels were and the distinct and utter superiority of bagels to donuts. I also threw English muffins in there, and that really irked some people, specifically my brother-in-law's wife, Michelle. She is not a fan of English muffins, folks. I'm just going to tell you right now. And I guess Michelle and I have some talking to do at the next family gathering. But Michelle, I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you creating a dialogue. This is good. This is how we move past our differences. Okay, and I appreciate you for that. Thank you. All right, so the bagels reign supreme thus far. The survey's almost closed, and last time I checked, bagels were ahead. They were ahead of English muffins, of the donuts. They were ahead of I like them all, and they were ahead of the, I think this people like this category because of the end of it. They were ahead of the Adam, it doesn't matter, get over yourself. Okay, all right. I mean, do you know who I am? If you don't, you know it's going to be difficult for me to get over myself, but I'm going to do my best. Okay. All right. I'm also looking for answers, all right, to the question that I posted. The question that I posted was, do you agree with the amount of criticism that referees and officials get? I brought it up when I was talking about what happened in the Super Bowl, but it's glaring across the board. It happens in every sport at every level, okay? Even youth, man. And I told you before, and I'm going to reiterate it. If you want to continue to have games, you need to give the officials a break. They're human and they make mistakes. If you think it is your God-given right to insult an official the entire contest, then you are making it about you because you want to draw attention to yourself. I will die on that hill. All right. Now, moving on. We got a lot of football content for you tonight, and I am jacked about this. So I'm a biology guy, okay? And in biology, you have what are called generalists and specialists. Okay, so hear me out on this. A generalist is an organism that is really good and adaptable and can survive in pretty much any condition, but it's not necessarily going to be great and be able to outcompete other organisms that are already in that environment, okay, because it's newer to that environment, or that type of environment is not something that the generalist organism is as familiar with. A specialist, on the other hand, is an organism that thrives in a specific type of environment. But if you remove a specialist from its environment, it's going to struggle and probably get eliminated, okay? So if you put a generalist organism up against a specialist organism and had them do some type of fight to the death, okay, it's all going to come down to, are you letting the generalist and the specialist use something else besides what they were born with, what they inherited from their DNA, some other type of physical trait, okay? I'm going to give you a little bit of time here. What is the best generalist on Earth? Meaning, what organism, what life form is the best generalist on Earth? Remember, a generalist is an organism that is very adaptable, okay? It's able to modify and even manipulate its environment, and it can survive through just about anything. I'll wait. And time's up. The best generalist on Earth is humans. Humans, okay? But we are not necessarily specialists at anything. All right? If you throw us in an ocean and want us to fight a shark, or you put us on the Serengeti Plains and want us to fight a lion, we're going to lose. We're going to lose. If you give us no tools, no equipment, you just throw us out there, we're going to lose, right? We will lose to a specialist. But hold on now, duh. Of course, Adam, of course you're going to get killed by a shark in the ocean, and of course you're going to get killed by a lion on the Serengeti Plains. Duh, Adam, your podcast, Adam, come on, man, this is lame. Hold up now. If you put the shark on the Serengeti Plains and a human has to compete against that shark, who's going to win? The human is. If you put a lion in the ocean and a human has to compete against the lion still might win, but the human's got a way better chance. Now, if you give the human tools that the human can either make by him or herself, or tools that are made by a machine that was at some point made by a human, well, now you even the odds. Adam, how does this relate to football? Okay, what I did was I went through a very basic metric. I looked at points scored and points allowed, all right, by FBS teams. So 132 teams, I looked at points scored and points allowed. You say, well, Adam, that's offense and defense. Yeah, basically, but it's not all offense and defense. Special teams is incorporated into that, okay? Your special teams kicks your extra points, your field goals, and can score on a punt or a kickoff return, okay? And then in addition to that, your defense can score on a safety or a fumble recovery or an interception return, so your defense can score too, all right? And then on the flip side of that, your offense can actually give up points. If your offense fumbles the ball and the opposing team's defense runs it back, or your offense throws an interception and the opposing team's defense runs it back for a touchdown, okay? So yes, it's mainly offense and defense, but you need to understand that just because we say points scored, that isn't just the offense. And just because we say points allowed, that isn't just the defense. Especially on the points allowed thing, some defenses get a really raw deal from that, okay? And we're going to talk specifically about the points allowed a la Michigan versus TCU in the semifinal game. Oh, J.J. McCarthy. You did a lot right, sir, but that was tough. Really, really tough. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so generalists versus specialists, all right? That's what we talked about. So what I did was I went through and I looked at those two metrics, points scored and points allowed, all right? and I started creating categories, but I had to set a threshold, okay, in order to create the categories. What does a threshold mean? Okay, so what I looked at was, what are some numbers that I can set to determine this is a really good team at scoring points, and this is a really good team when it comes to not allowing points, okay? So I set that metric. The first time I set it at 500 points for points scored. Okay, so a team that scores 500 or more points during the season. This includes the regular and the postseason. This is every game they play in. So not every team played the same amount of games, and that's okay. All right, same with points allowed. And on the points allowed side, I did 250 points or less allowed. Okay, so this first category that we're talking about, all right, is really like a super generalist. This is a team that is really good at scoring and a team that is really good at not allowing points. I called these teams the Mutants, okay? They are dominant on both sides of the ball, all right? Now, I chose 500 and 250. Remember that. 500 for points scored, 250 for points allowed. You got to be over 500 for points scored and under 250 for points allowed, all right? There's three teams that are Mutants from this past season. 3. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to guess. Time's up. Those 3 teams are Michigan, Georgia, and Alabama. Now, does that really surprise you? I don't know. Adam, I don't believe you. Then go look up the data. As Dave Fizdale said, that NBA coach from about 5 years, he said, take that for data. Well, you take this for data, and if you don't like it or agree with it, then go look it up yourself. And if you think I'm wrong, or you can prove to me that I'm wrong, then tell me. I like getting corrected. I do, because then that means I'm more worried about being right than I am about just spewing out information. But I did a lot of research on this, so fact check me, please. All right, so there's 3 Mutants. 3 Mutants. Now, Georgia, national champion. You'd call this team the apex predator. Nobody kills or eats or hunts the apex predator. Nobody. This is the dang T-Rex, King Kong, whatever you want to call it, is the apex predator. Okay, and clearly Georgia showed that, okay, in the national championship game with that absolute, oh man, it was just, man, they had some splaining to do to those people's parents about what they did to those kids at TCU. No disrespect to TCU, man, you guys, shoot, you overachieved, and I'll get into that metric later. All right, Michigan was a semifinal team, okay, and they lost to a team, all right, that they should not have lost to. So Michigan, a mutant, all right, lost to a team that I will come back to, but I categorized this team a specialist, all right? TCU was a specialist skewed towards the offensive side of the ball. So we'll get back into that because we still got to get through these mutants, all right? The third mutant is Alabama. Well, duh, Adam. Alabama's a mutant. But, Adam, how can Alabama be a mutant this year? They lost 2 games. Guys, they lost 2 games. 2 games. I can count. 3. No, 2. They lost 2 games by a combined 4 points on the last play of the game. I don't like to use the L word. That was bad. I don't like that. That was a series of unfortunate events. I don't like using that L word. I think that L word is an excuse. I'll probably use it later on, and you'll say, Adam, you're a hypocrite. You shouldn't. You said you didn't like to use the L word, and now you're. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying my best to not use the L word. You can use it. All right, I don't want to use it in my my lexicon. That's another L word, but not the L word that I was telling you not to say. All right, so you have your 3 mutants. We talked about those. All right, and Alabama is a mutant, guys. They scored over 500 points this season, and they gave up less than 250. And they drubbed the Big 12 champ, Kansas State, in their bowl game. Just drug them. It was bad, too. All right? So those are the 3 teams. Okay, so between those 3 teams, those 3 mutants, all right, there's 3 total losses. 3. Michigan lost by 6, and Alabama lost by 1 and 3. Georgia was undefeated. Okay, those are mutants. All right, next are the generalists. Okay, the generalists, these are teams, they can beat you on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball. It doesn't matter. You want to get into a run the ball, bleed the clock, limit possessions, rock fight, violent, slobber knocker, three yards in a cloud of dust game. Cool. We'll beat you like that. You want to get in this shootout, high-scoring, up-tempo, we're playing grasketball, okay? Not even football. We're playing basketball on grass. I call it grasketball. I know I'm creative. We'll beat you that way, too. It doesn't matter. We're a generalist. We're going to be able to beat you either way. We're not quite on that mutant level. We're not as productive as the mutants, but mutants are rare, right? Okay, so we're talking about generalists now, and generalists are also pretty darn rare. So what I did with generalists was I said, okay, these are going to be teams, all right, they're not mutants, but they're still pretty good on offense and defense. These teams scored 450 or more points, and they gave up 300 or less points. Okay, so a mutant has a 250 point differential. All right, a generalist has a 150 point differential. So they're still really good. All right, still really good. There were 6 generalists, 6. All right, and then there were 2 more that were really, really close to being able to be generalists. So I thought they were worth mentioning, but technically, according to the criteria that I used, all right, they're not, all right, but they are worth mentioning. Okay, so the 6 generalists, this is a team that can beat you scoring points or a team that can shut you down and not let you score points, all right? The 6 generalists are Clemson, Florida State, Ohio State, Penn State, Utah, and Tennessee. Well, okay, Clemson. Let's go through this. Clemson, ACC champ. Florida State, much improved under Mike Norvell, getting there, and probably some people's pick as the favorite to win the ACC next year, given the amount of momentum they finished with, what they accomplished during the season. You guys remember, they beat LSU in the first game of the regular season off a missed extra point, but a win's a win. So props to you, Mike Norvell and company. And if you've seen their recruiting class, both high school and transfer portal, Florida State is trending upward. Okay, they're going to be a real popular pick. Ain't no dark horse for Florida State, guys. If you call them a dark horse, then everyone, a dark horse is a team that could be good and should be good maybe, but not a lot of people think they're going to be good. So if everybody thinks they're going to be good, you can't call them a dark horse. They're just the favorite. All right, next, Ohio State. Well, Adam, isn't Ohio State a mutant? Nope. Not according to my criteria. Now, they're really, really good. If you moved the criteria, okay, the thresholds of the 500 and the 250, okay, Ohio State gave up 273 points on defense, all right? So they didn't make my threshold, but let's say you moved everything 25 points. So you said, all right, well, we're going to make it so that a mutant is a team that scored over 525 points and a team that gave up less than 275. So it's still that 250-point spread differential, but you just slid it, okay? Then Ohio State would be a mutant. Yep, they would be. And I'm going to get into like point differentials a little bit later, all right? Ohio State is right up there. But Adam, they challenged Georgia. They gave Georgia their toughest game, no doubt. Yup. And what did Ohio State do? Ohio State is elite on offense, and they're pretty good on defense. Okay, I repeat that. They're elite on offense. Ryan Day, their head football coach, is a quarterback guy. Ryan Day, their head football coach, is an offensive guy. Ryan Day, their head football coach, is the offensive play caller. All right? He did such a good job. That's why he was given the job once Urban Meyer stepped down. Okay? So Ohio State is good enough to be a mutant, but according to the metrics I'm using, they're not. You can say, well, Adam, they should be. Then fine. Then make them, categorize them if that's what you want them to be. they are definitely, clearly good enough to challenge Georgia. And they had every chance to beat them. They just missed a 50-yard field goal at the end of the game. That's it. They made the playoff. They were one of the top teams. And honestly, if Ohio State plays Georgia again, they might beat them. But they didn't. Georgia beat them that game. Okay? So here we go. All right? Penn State. Adam, Penn State and Ohio State don't belong in the same category. According to this metric, they do. Guys, Penn State is really good on defense. Manny Diaz, the former Miami coach, okay, is the defensive coordinator at Penn State. Manny Diaz is an awesome recruiter, and he dials it up on D. I mean, he gets after your tail. Not to mention, he came in and he was handed a really good defense, okay? Brett Pry, who's the head coach at Virginia Tech, was a great defensive coordinator at Penn State before Manny Diaz. So Manny Diaz just picked up where Brett Pry left off, and he kept that thing going, all right? And Penn State's pretty good on offense. Well, Adam, Sean Clifford's so average. Maybe. Is Stetson Bennett average? You know, the guy that won back-to-back national championships? Well, Adam, Stetson Bennett had all these dudes around him. He had a great defense on the earth. Okay. Name me, don't look it up. Name me Georgia's best receiver this year. Not their tight end. Tight ends. Name me their best receiver, not their running back. How about from last year? Right. There you go. Okay. So put some respect on Stetson Bennett's name. Put some respect on Sean Clifford's name. All right? And understand that Sean Clifford got it done, man. He did a really good job. So quit hating on the guy. Now, the guy who's going to take over for him is deemed to be a guy who's got a lot higher ceiling, Drew Allar, and we'll see what Penn State can actually get done. They have 2 freshman running backs, which are out of this world. They have a ton of starts coming back on the offensive line, and like I told you before, their defense is very salty. So Penn State is a generalist according to the metrics that I used, and watch out, man, because the Big Ten East is going to be nasty, all right? Utah, them Utes, them Oots, all right? Utah is a generalist. Utah can beat you scoring, or Utah can shut you out on defense, all right? Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley, those guys dial it up on defense. Cam Rising is coming back. I think Cam Rising has about the same amount of eligibility that Jesus did, because my goodness, how long has Cam Rising been at Utah? And you know he didn't start at Utah either. He started his career, I believe he started his career at Texas, and then he transferred. I mean, my goodness. But Utah, you want to talk about competitive? You want to talk about just straight up solid and Pac-12 champs, and they beat USC twice this year? Dog. Utah's the real deal, okay? Tennessee. All right. Josh Heupel, I'm sorry, sir. I was not a believer. I thought that what you did at UCF was not great. I thought that you were kind of fraudulent, man. Josh Heupel, sir, I am sorry. From one lefty to another, sir, I am sorry. I bow, sir, please forgive me. Josh Heupel, you are getting it done, sir. Absolutely. Get it done, man. Tennessee is another generalist, okay? Scored over 450 points on offense, all right, and gave up less than 300 points on defense. Tennessee, okay, metric-wise, was almost good enough to be a mutant, all right? They just gave up a couple too many points on defense, but not that many more. They scored 599 points on offense. That is elite. Okay, so Tennessee can get after you, and clearly, Tennessee is capable of upending a mutant. Okay, because they beat Alabama, and how did they beat Alabama? In a shootout on a last-second field goal, 52-49. Thank you. Okay, these are my 2 like honorable mention generalists. All right, so you got Kansas State. Kansas State met the criteria on offense, but they were 6 points short on defense. They gave up 306 points during the regular season. So technically they're not a generalist, but they're really, really close, and I wanted to mention them. The other team, Texas. Is Texas back? Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop. Stop. Stop it. Texas met the criteria to be a generalist on defense, but didn't meet it on offense. That's crazy. They scored 448 points this season, so they were too shy. They're also worth an honorable mention because essentially they're generalists. They're just a little bit short. Little bit short. Okay? But again, like with both Texas and Kansas State, if you just slid the scale 10 points one way or the other, they would be considered a true generalist. Okay, so they're more victims of where I set the mark than fulfilling the qualities needed to be a generalist. That's why I brought them up. Okay, all right. So you have your mutants and you have your generalists. Again, those are teams, those are schools that are capable of beating you on offense or on defense. Okay, they can get into a shootout or they can shut it down. However you want to do it, those are the best teams at doing that. Now I'm going to move to your specialists. Okay, we have two different types of specialists. We have your offensive specialist and your defensive specialist. So these are teams where they were getting it done in one category, and they might have been decent in the other category or not very good. Okay, but they're really, really good in at least one category. Okay, so the offensive specialists, and really this just means points scored. So again, points scored is mainly the offense, but it's also special teams and any defensive scores. That's all points scored. Okay, so the offensive specialists, these are teams that definitely scored more than 500 points, and it's not generalists and it's not mutants. If you fell into the generalist or the mutant category, okay, I'm not including you in the specialist category because that defeats the whole purpose of what I'm talking about. Okay, so specialists. First off, you got TCU, national runner-up. All right, USC. If they could just pull that dang Utah thorn out of their side. I mean, they got the Heisman Trophy winner coming back. They got, you could say, the best quarterback and play caller developer. You like how I just threw words together? Lincoln Riley's elite. He is so good. So good. So they just got to shore up that D. And they're not terrible on D. It's just their offense is so good that their defense is very pedestrian. Alex Grinch, there were a lot of people calling for his head. Look, man, Alex Grinch, when he was the defensive coordinator at Washington State, he put together some nasty defenses. Mike Leach hired him to be the DC there. I remember watching Washington State on defense and being like, what are these? All the pre-snap movement and stuff was brilliant. Okay, Alex Grinch, I'm a fan, man. Go get it done. Prove these haters wrong, man. There's people preying on your downfall, dog. Don't let them do you like that, Alex Grinch. All right, next up, UCLA. UCLA was an offensive specialist. Old Chip Kelly, man, getting that thing humming. Let's see what happens in LA this year with, Dorian Thompson-Robinson finally graduated, so they got two different quarterback options in there. And you got Colin Schlee, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong on the first name. He's a transfer from Kent State. And then they have a freshman. His name is slipping my mind right now. Is a very highly touted freshman that signed with them. Malachi Freeman, maybe. I can't remember if Malachi Freeman went to USC or UCLA. That might be him. Fact check me on that. All right. Oregon. Oregon was a specialist. Scored more than 500 points. Oregon was so good on offense that after one season as the offensive coordinator, Kenny Dillingham got the head job at Arizona State University. Forks up, baby. Let's go, Kenny. Get it done, man. And Kenny hired a great staff. But Adam, stay on point. Stay on topic. Okay. The next offensive specialist was Washington. Old Kalen DeBoer over there getting it done to the point where his OC, Ryan Grubb, got 2 raises. First season, that dude got 2 raises. Wow, that's awesome, man. And well-earned and well-deserved. And he was courted by Nick Saban to take over as the OC once Bill O'Brien left, but he elected to stay. So, and then they got Michael Penix coming back at quarterback, lefty. Yes, sir. Do us proud, Michael Penix. Guy has completely resurrected his career. Great, a poster boy for what you can do, what's good about the transfer portal. He had some good seasons, put together a good run at Indiana. He just went through a lot of injury issues, and then kind of that revolving door at quarterback at Indiana. He transferred to Washington, and man, great job. All right, this is a team that I love, and they were the darlings of the bowl season. Old Tulane getting it done. Now, people talked about Tulane and how much better they were this year than last year, but guys, they had that hurricane. They weren't practicing in their facilities. It was crazy. So for them to take a huge step down last year and then step back up this year, credit to Willie Fritz and company. But man, that was just a team that underachieved last year because of some really horrific circumstances, and they are scoring points. How about this one? Were these guys under the radar, or is it just me? Was I just... I'm not a Hilltopper hater. That's the Western Kentucky mascot. I'm not a Hilltopper hater, but man, Western Kentucky, and isn't Tyson Helton, brother of Clay Helton, the head coach there? Great job, Western Kentucky. And then to round out the offensive specialists, we got UTSA, the Roadrunners. 210 triangle of toughness. Let's go. And let me tell you, Coach Trailer down there, that dude is legit. That guy, when he says something, he means it. He is a Texas high school coach through and through. I went to a clinic with that dude, and he's talking about, hey, I promise you guys, we'll follow you on Twitter, da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, okay, let's see what you got, Jeff Trailer. So I hit the follow button on Twitter. That joker, as soon as he got done with his presentation, Jeff Trailer followed you back. Hey, man, I respect you because you did what you said you were going to do, man. I appreciate you on that, Jeff. All right, defensive specialists. These are now teams that were dominant on the defensive side of the ball, and they might have been good on offense, maybe not, but their defense was great, okay? Louisville, all right? And Scott Satterfield was the head coach there, and he left to go to Cincinnati, and now Brian Brom returns. I'm looking forward to seeing what Louisville does, but Malik Cunningham, I think he's finally gone there. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on with Louisville. NC State, Dave Doran always puts together a good product. Dave Doran is underrated as a coach, man. That guy just doesn't get enough love. So in the Wolfpack, they develop dudes. They churn dudes out. Virginia. Bronco Mendenhall left, all right, and then the offensive coordinator from Clemson comes in. My gosh, Tony Elliott, okay, and it was rough at Virginia, but they gave up less than 250 points, so there's something to build on for them. Tony Elliott, man, I wish you all the best there. Iowa State, Matt Campbell, rough year this year. I think they finished at the bottom of the Big 12. Offense wasn't very good, but their defense was salty, kept them in games. Illinois, Bert, however you say his first name, defense was so good. Ryan Walters, who was the DC there, got the head job at Purdue. Okay, Iowa, my goodness, man. Norm Parker, year after year, churns out a great defense. Kirk Ferentz, I'm not going to take the low-hanging fruit. I'm not going to take that where everybody talks about how your son benefits from nepotism and your son needs to be let go. That's low-hanging fruit. I'm not going to do that, man. Okay, I don't wish that on coaches, man. I'm a coach myself. So this is about Iowa's defense. Iowa's defense is super nasty. Okay, Minnesota, PJ Fleck rode the boat. Elite. All right, getting it done. Air Force, Troy Calhoun, defensive specialist. Kentucky, they're always good, man. Mark Stoops is always good. They're always good on defense. James Madison, first year in FBS, and they would have won the Sun Belt, except they weren't eligible to win it. but they would have won it. James Madison, great job. Marshall with salty defense, and then Troy. Those were your defensive specialists. Okay, now let me shift topics a little bit. You're like, God, Adam, that was a lot, man. Okay, so let me pose a question to you guys. This is a let's see if everyone's paying attention. All right, so who is worse, or are these the same guy? Are these the same guy? When you were a kid, you might cut through someone's lawn, you might run across someone's yard, and every neighborhood's got at least one of these dudes. Every neighborhood's got at least one of the dudes. It's the get off my lawn guy. He comes out and look, the term, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. That's get off my lawn guy. That dude stays ready. Trademark physical movement, trademark move is the old fist pump. The underhanded, not the overhanded, the underhanded fist pump. Get off my lawn! Get off my lawn! Is that the same guy as the Scooby Doo villain? You know, when they got him tied up and he's wearing a mask and they rip it off, okay? And I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for these stupid kids. Is the get off my lawn guy and the Scooby Doo villain, are they almost the same guy, or are they different? You tell me. I thought they had some similarities, but I do think the get off my lawn guy is more surface level mad, and I think he's actually kind of, he just wants friends. He wants friends. Whereas the Scooby Doo villain is a bit more nefarious, probably had a troubled childhood. That's how I would differentiate them, but I think that they're almost the same person. Okay, now, getting back to generalists versus specialists. Okay, so I talked to you guys about the mutants and the generalists, teams that can beat you on offense and defense. Then I talked to you about the specialists, teams that can beat you, and mainly they're going to beat you with what they specialize in. Okay, and they're so good at it that what happened? Sometimes if you're really, really good at one thing, you're good enough to beat someone who's decent at everything. TCU, offensive specialists, beat a mutant in Michigan, right? TCU, offensive specialist, beat a mutant in Michigan, a team that was dominant on both sides of the ball. What did TCU have in that game? You can, look, stop it with the refs. Stop it with the refs. Stop. I know that there was that call where you thought it was a touchdown. That does not have a place in this conversation. Stop it with the refs. TCU had two defensive scores in that game. 2 interception returns for a touchdown. That's why I was talking about J.J. McCarthy here. J.J. McCarthy is a good quarterback. He's efficient. He's athletic. He can sling the rock. But those 2 interceptions, those killed Michigan. Those are the difference in the game. You can't count, unless you're Iowa, wink, wink, you can't count on a defensive score. That's not something that's sustainable, okay? You can't say, well, on our games always, they go this way, and if our defense can score, stop saying that. Defense's job is to stop. If they can score, that's awesome, but that's icing on the cake. Stop planning on a defense scoring, guys. It's not sustainable. Well, Adam, it happened twice in the semifinal. I know. Guys, that's not normal. That's why I say that's not sustainable. Okay? All right. So these are teams that I labeled dangerous. Dangerous. Okay? Now, you're going to hear mutants. You're going to hear generalists. You're going to hear specialists. Because these are just dangerous teams, because now what we're specifically talking about is we're talking about the point spread. And so I took every team in the FBS, all right, that had at least a 150-point spread. 150-point spread, all right? These are dangerous teams, meaning when you play them, you got a chance of losing to them. It doesn't matter what category you come from, you got a chance to lose to them because they're really good at one or more things, okay? All right, so Georgia, 402-point spread. All right, so they scored 402 more points than they allowed. They're a mutant. Michigan, 341-point spread. Mutant. Tennessee, 303-point spread. Generalist. Ohio State, 302-point spread. Generalist. Alabama, 298-point spread. Mutant. Remember, I told you before, Tennessee and Ohio State are good enough to be mutants. They competed with and beat mutants. Remember that. But the criteria that I chose was specific numbers. And so you had to slide the numbers in order for Tennessee and Ohio State to fit those mutant categories. But they're definitely good enough to, and they did. Okay? Utah, 241-point spread. Generalist. Penn State, 228-point spread. Generalist. Florida State, 201-point spread. Generalist. Tulane, 193-point spread. Offensive specialist. Air Force, 188-point spread. Defensive specialist. Minnesota, 187-point spread. Defensive specialist. Western Kentucky, 182-point spread. Offensive specialist. Washington, 180-point spread. Offensive specialist. James Madison, 177-point spread. Defensive specialist. I'm almost done. Hang with me. Clemson, 173-point spread. Generalist. USC, 170-point spread. Offensive specialist. LSU, 168-point spread. They categorize as a generalist, but you'd have to slide the numbers, okay? Slide the numbers. So they were 15 off. They gave up 315 points defensively, all right? But if you slid that scale 15 points over, all right, and you said, well, they got to score 15 more points offensively, they would definitely categorize as a generalist. Texas, I already talked to them about you. They were 2 points under my generalist category. They had a 167-point spread, all right? So, and then Oregon State, Jonathan Smith, alum, great developer of quarterbacks, great offensive play caller. Do you know how hard it is to win in Corvallis, Oregon? You can't even spell Corvallis. I know Jonathan Smith can. I'm talking to you. I doubt you can. Corvallis, let me see. Corvallis. Did I get that right? I'll look it up later. Producer, can you look that up for me? Oh, wait, I'm the producer. Dang. All right. Fresno State, 156-point spread. Good enough to be a generalist, okay? And UTSA, 152-point spread, offensive specialist. Okay, in the almost category, you have Illinois, 149 points, Oregon, 148 points, TCU, 147 points, and Kansas State, 146 points. All those teams are dangerous. They're going to, if you don't bring it, they can beat you either with something they specialize in or just being good at everything, great at everything. Okay, all right. Now, we're going to talk about some freaks, some anomalies, okay? Anomalies. So these are split into two categories. I split them into survivors and I split them into sufferers. You like how I used one hand and the other hand to make my point? All right. So the survivors. Okay. So this is an organism, a team that should not be doing well and is doing well in spite of itself or in spite of its environment. Okay? Like, how does a hippo swim? How does it do that? It's a survivor. I don't know, man. I don't get it. I don't get it. How can an ostrich not fly? I don't get it. I don't know. Okay? So a survivor is a team that was outscored by its opponents and still produced a winning record. I repeat, a survivor is a team that scored less points. They were outscored by their opponents, and yet they produced a winning record. Okay? Now, you can break it down one of two ways. You can say this happened within their conference games, both the score and the record, or this happened within their full season of games, their score and their record. Okay? And then I also found 2 teams where it happened both for conference and overall record. Okay? All right. So SMU is a survivor. Purdue is a survivor. Bowling Green. Listen to these numbers. Bowling Green had a winning record in their conference, the MAC. They were 5-3 in the conference. They were outscored 164 to 219. What? Coach Loeffler, tip of the cap to you, sir. Somehow you're getting it done. Now, they did have a losing record overall. They were 6-7 because they lost their bowl game, okay? And they were outscored 305 to 423. But a team with a losing record should be a team that you would expect to be outscored, okay? Now, Utah State is a survivor, all right? So again, those are 4 of the 6 teams I just told you that are survivors, where they fit into a category where they were outscored either overall or just in their conference, and they had a winning record either overall or just in their conference. So not both, one or the other. And that's impressive either way, okay? Good for them. These next 2 teams are the last of the 6 teams, and they did both. So they were outscored in both just their conference games as well as all of their games, and they had a winning record in their conference games and all of their games, their full season. Okay, these 2 teams, Wyoming was 5-3 in their conference, and they were outscored 146 to 158. Wyoming was 7-6 overall, and they were outscored 276 to 311. Craig Bowl, yes sir. Do I give Craig Bowl the old get off my lawn, like a celebratory one? Do you think Craig Bowl is a guy that tells people to get off his lawn? He might be. But Coach, you are a champion. You did a great job at North Dakota State and Wyoming. Laramie, Wyoming is another very difficult place to win. Laramie, Wyoming. Okay, the other team. This was surprising to me, considering how much publicity they've gotten, considering the success of this program, and considering that they're going to have a new head coach this year. Okay, Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers, the turf field, Grayson McCall, Jamie Chadwell, who's now the head coach at Liberty. Okay, Coastal Carolina was 6-2 in their conference schedule. 6-2. They were outscored 216 to 235. They were 9-4 overall. 9-4 overall. They were outscored 378 to 414. How is that possible? They found a way to get it done. Okay, now, this is a little more sad. But the upside is the potential's there. These are the sufferers. These are organisms or teams that you go, you know what? I think they're going to be doing all right. And then you look and you go, ooh, what? You mean they lost? They have losing records? How? So these are teams that outscored their opponents but had losing records. I repeat, these are the sufferers. They suffered. They outscored their opponents, either conference schedule or overall schedule, and they had losing records. Memphis, Baylor, Oklahoma, Kansas, Florida Atlantic, Washington State, Texas A&M. App State, Georgia Southern, and Louisiana. Now, those teams I just named fit one of the two. It was either they outscored their opponents in conference and had a losing record, or they outscored their opponents overall and had a losing record. Only one team outscored its opponents both in conference play and overall and had losing records in both. I'm going to give you a chance to guess. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Close that window. Stop it. You're cheating. I need you to show your football knowledge without Googling everything. Get off the Google. Florida Gators, the Fighting Billy Napiers. And I'm going to tell you something. It broke my heart because you see this right behind me? You see this right here? That's Corona del Sol, baby. Tempe, Corona del Sol. Orange and gold. 1001 East Knox Road, stand up. What does that have to do with Florida? Well, I'm going to tell you. Ricky Pearsall, in my opinion, the best wide receiver at Florida, transferred to them from where? Arizona State. And Ricky Pearsall is an alum of the Corona del Sol High School. So he went to Tempe Corona del Sol, and he stayed true, and he went to ASU, and then ASU turned into a dumpster fire, and he transferred. And he was living his best life as Anthony Richardson's top target at Florida. And Ricky Pearsall, I ain't mad at you, man. When you transferred, it broke my heart. I'm just sad that you transferred, man. I wish you could have finished your career as a Sun Devil, man. I remember seeing you. I'm gonna tell you right now, Ricky Pearsall. Someone give this dude a shout out. I went and I saw you in that Gilbert High game. Sheesh, Ricky Pearsall. I was calling my friends. I was like, guys, this dude is the real deal. I think you had like over 300 yards receiving. 4 touchdowns. It was Ricky Pearsall, whatever you wanted to do. Sir, I ain't mad at you, I told you, but in the spirit of the show, I will give you a get off my lawn fist shake. I've yet to do that, but it did make me think, do I look like that guy? Am I going to be that guy? Man, I don't want to be that guy. All right. So Florida is a sufferer. Those jokers outscored their opponents in the regular season, or I'm sorry, not the regular season, the full season, okay, and in conference play, and they had losing records in both. Come on, Billy, you can do it. I know you can do it. And I'm not going to take that low-hanging fruit, the Jaden Rashada stuff. We'll talk about that another time. And I do not blame the coaching staff for that debacle. I don't even blame Jaden Rashada. That's for another time. But hey, Scooby Doo Villians and Get Off My Lawn guys, you need to stop with all that nonsense about talking about kids nowadays and all that. Listen here, man. If you had an opportunity and you were told you were going to get paid X amount of dollars and you thought it was in the bag and you were going to go get it, you would have tried to get it. So stop with all that nonsense about it's all about the spirit of the game. And you know, then you're going to have to make me bring up this dude, this character named Captain Compete. You don't want Captain Compete to come out and show you guys up. So relax. Stop it. Relax. This has been fun. I love this stuff, man. And I really feel like this is the first episode where I've had a chance to talk football, like hardcore football. I was jacked about doing this podcast. I was sitting in the office today, and I was going over these stats with some of my coworkers. And shout out Coach Waterman, Coach Rigdon, Coach Colvin. I was going over the stats with those dudes. And yeah, so I wore them out, but I was so excited to do this show, and I can finally talk in a full volume. Man, when I go downstairs, I hope my dog has not destroyed my house. I do have to let the dog out at some point, but not yet. Not yet. Don't play that Baha Men music yet. Not yet. Can I do a Dikembe Mutombo finger wag? No. All right. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the validity of thresholds, labels, and hypotheses. And for all you science haters out there, all that means is what I chose to name things, why I chose what I chose, okay? And then talking about, hey, is what I chose valid? So in other words, did I do a good job of choosing this, and does it all make sense? Like, does it all come back? Okay, so Alabama, let's talk about the Mutants. Okay, the Mutants. So let's look at Alabama first. So Alabama lost 49-52 to a generalist, Tennessee. But I told y'all before, Tennessee is good enough to be a mutant, according to the metrics that I have. We're not talking about recruits right now and all that. We'll do something on this thing called the blue chip ratio, but we're not doing that right now. Y'all are going to be really mad at me when I get into the blue chip ratio. So they lost to LSU, okay, which was labeled dangerous, okay, and they lost to LSU 31-32. So they lost to Tennessee by 3 points. They lost to LSU by 1 point. All right, those are their losses, guys. But they beat Texas, okay. Texas is a generalist, 2 points away from it. I've given them their props. Stop it. Texas is not back yet. You need to stop it with all that nonsense. They beat Texas by 1 point, but they beat them. Okay. If we're gonna give Alabama crap for losing to LSU by a point, then we need to praise Alabama for beating Texas by 1 point. Alabama was a 9-4 football team. Texas was an 8-5 football team. Okay, so settle down. Texas A&M, they beat Texas A&M, okay, by 4 points. Texas A&M was a sufferer, okay, and they beat Kansas State 45-20 in the bowl game. Kansas State was a generalist. Alabama was probably the weakest of the Mutants, all right, but they're still really good. Really, really good. And if you line up Alabama against a team like Georgia, Alabama's going to be able to hang with them. I'm telling you right now. When they played Texas A&M, Jalen Milroe was the starting QB. Bryce Brown was hurt. Or sorry, not Bryce Brown. My fault. Bryce Young. Put some respect on that man's name. My bad. Okay. Michigan. All right, Michigan was the next mutant. They beat Illinois 19-17. Illinois was a defensive specialist team. All right, they beat Ohio State 45-23. Ohio State was a generalist that was good enough to be a mutant if you moved the scale, if you moved where you set the points scored and points allowed. If you slid it over to the offensive side, they were good enough to be a mutant. All right, and they beat Purdue, which was a survivalist. Okay, and they lost to TCU, an offensive specialist team. But they lost to TCU, and I talked about this already. They lost to TCU because of 2 defensive scores that TCU had. And TCU beat them in a shootout. TCU didn't beat them in a low-scoring game. Michigan could beat teams in low-scoring games and in shootouts. It lost in a shootout to a team that was majoring. They specialized in offensive games. So they lost to a team that was as good or better than they were at offense. Okay? And then Georgia. Now, Georgia was undefeated. Just, again, apex predator. All right? Georgia was undefeated. They beat Oregon 49-3. Smoked them. All right? They beat Missouri. Missouri's the one kind of anomaly. Like, what is Missouri? I don't know. I mean, it was one of those deals, man. LSU, they beat LSU 50-30 in the SEC championship game. LSU was a dangerous team. Okay, Oregon was an offensive specialist team. They beat Ohio State, which was a generalist but good enough to be a mutant, and they beat TCU, which was an offensive specialist. All right. Can I do one of these? I mean that in a respectful way. Like, okay, I have gotten through the content, and man, I was jacked up, and what an episode. What an episode. Take that for data. So now I'm going to shift gears. Okay, I'm going to talk about my friend Jesse Robert DeBaker, DDS-PC. Jesse is my friend. He's a dentist. Now, my favorite podcast, besides my own, is a podcast called the Cover 3 Podcast. And one of the things that they do is they have a guest picker, a guy who they don't say his name. He's just called the dentist, and he gives his picks along with all the normal show hosts. They give their picks. Now, my friend Jesse DeBaker, he likes to do sports wagers, okay, and he's pretty good at it, all right. I didn't pick him because he's a dentist. I picked him because of all of my friends. He happens to be the guy who does wagers and takes it the most serious. And he happens to be a dentist, all right? So I need to go back through, and I'm going to tell you what Jesse Robert DeBaker, DDS, PC, had as his picks for the Super Bowl, okay? Because just to give you guys an idea, sports betting is crazy now, man. I don't do it, but I do understand that there's people that like that content, okay? And I told Jesse I'd give him a shout out. All right, so here were his Super Bowl bets. He texted me these bets before the Super Bowl. All right, he bet on the length of the national anthem. He bet the over. Okay, the over under was set at 119.5 seconds. This is a thing, and he bet the over. Okay, he bet the Chiefs at plus 1.5, and he bet the over at 50.5. I don't know if the over at 50.5, I don't know if that was the Chiefs team total or if that was the game total. I'm not sure on that one. I didn't ask him, and I just thought of that. He also bet on the color of the winning Coach Gatorade shower as orange. That's a thing too. All right. Then he texted me during the game. He texted me, the national anthem sang by Chris Stapleton officially came in at 121 seconds. I'm 1 for 1 because I hit that over. It was hit or miss for a time, but he hit the Brave at about 1 minute and 54 seconds and carried that thing almost 7 seconds. This dude bet and he hit the over on the amount of time it was going to take to sing the national anthem. Tip of the cap to you, Chris Stapleton, Jesse Robert DeBaker. You get a get off my lawn fist shake. There you go, sir. And apparently Jesse went 3-3 overall in his bets. So when football season rolls back around, I'll give some Jesse Robert DeBaker DDS PC because he is a dentist. I will give some of Jesse's picks because the guy knows what he's doing and it's fun, and I know that some people would be very interested in that content. All right, so we have that. Back to other things. I had a listener, a good man by the name of Kenny Grisham, whom I know through Maypearl. Kenny asked, what makes a good rivalry? So we're going to talk about that in one of these upcoming episodes. But to the listeners out there, you tell me what makes a good rivalry. I would, off the top of my head, say it starts with location. So your proximity, how close or far you are to an opponent, okay? I think it also has to do with like the size. Are you and that other school about the same size? Or do you have like the same niche, okay, that you fill? And then I think also there's history, like so how long, how many times have you guys played, and has it been back and forth, or has it been more one-sided? Has it gone in waves? Did your rivalry take a break and then get reinstated? And then finally, has there been any like real significant events that occurred at the game? Whether it was something like Cal Stanford where the band came out there and they were playing and they got the trombone player got run over, or someone made a spectacular play, or the refs made a really controversial call. So off the top of my head, Kenny, those are the things that I would say make a good rivalry, but we'll delve more into that, all right? Again, police, help, please like, rate, review, follow, subscribe, and recommend. It's free to you, and it helps me, okay? Big breath. Please send us any comments or questions at footballandotherthings1@gmail.com. Footballandotherthings1@gmail.com. All right? And please, there's no underscore, spacing, none of that. That's the email. It's long, but it's easy to remember. Footballandotherthings1@gmail.com. All right? So, I think it's time to finish up. Man, what an awesome show. I want feedback on this, guys. Give me feedback, please. Good, bad. Like, I'm not looking to just have my ego stroked. I mean, it feels nice, but I want to get better, okay? And the only way I can get better is if I get feedback. So I've had feedback. I've had criticism, I've had compliments, and I want it all, okay? But ultimately, just don't lie to me, okay? Don't lie to me. I've gotten some ratings on the Apple Podcasts. I had one-star rating. Dang, hater. But I wish whoever gave me that 1-star rating, I wish they would have told me why, okay? And then I had a bunch of 5-star ratings, probably, I don't know, people in my family, and then some raving fans, some people that absolutely love it, yes, and I'm all about that too. So, from the top floor of the Olsen family complex, located here in Waxahachie, Texas, this is Adam Olsen and the Football and Other Things podcast, signing out, episode 4. Mom, Dad, I love you so much, and I miss you guys. Have a great night.